There are moments that don't just change your life. They erase the person you used to be. Mine happened aboard the Eternal Horizon, the most luxurious cruise ship I had ever stepped foot on. The sun was sinking into the Caribbean Sea, turning the water into liquid gold. Champagne glasses clinked. A jazz trio played near the infinity pool. Couples danced beneath elegant string lights. It should have been the happiest evening of my life. 3 hours earlier, my company had signed the largest contract in its history. For the first time in 4 years, I had finally smiled without forcing it. Then I looked across the upper deck. My heart stopped. A woman in a breathtaking red evening gown stepped onto the terrace, laughing softly as the ocean breeze lifted her hair. I froze. The glass in my hand slipped through my fingers. It exploded across the polished deck. Nobody noticed, because I couldn't stop staring. No, the word barely escaped my lips. It can't be. She turned slightly. The golden sunlight illuminated the left side of her face, the tiny beauty mark beneath her jaw, the silver earrings I had bought on our honeymoon in Jamaica, the graceful way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Every detail, every movement, every memory. There was no mistake. It was Nia Carter, my wife, the woman whose funeral I attended 4 years ago, the woman I watched disappear beneath 6 feet of earth, the woman I had spent 48 months mourning. She was alive, and smiling. Standing beside her was a tall, black man wearing a perfectly tailored white designer suit. Confident, successful. His hand rested naturally around her waist. Not awkwardly, not politely, like a man who had done it 1,000 times. She leaned closer to him. He whispered something. She laughed again. That laugh used to belong to me. My chest tightened so violently I thought I was having a heart attack. For 4 years, I had carried flowers to a grave. Every first Sunday of the month, rain, heat, holidays. It didn't matter. I always went. I spoke to a headstone because I believed the love of my life was buried beneath it. I told her about my promotions, about losing our old house, about rebuilding my company, about how much I still missed her. And all that time, she had been alive. A waiter approached me. "Sir, are you all right?" I couldn't answer. My legs moved on their own. One step, then another. Each step felt heavier than the last. The closer I got, the more impossible everything became. Flashbacks crashed into my mind. The day we met volunteering at a community fundraiser in Atlanta, our tiny apartment with secondhand furniture, sharing instant noodles because we couldn't afford dinner, promising each other that one day we'd travel the world. Our wedding, her tears as we exchanged vows, her voice whispering, "Nothing could ever make me leave you." I believed every word. God. I built my entire future on those words. Now they felt like ashes. I stopped only a few feet away. She hadn't seen me yet. The man gently squeezed her hand. A diamond engagement ring sparkled on her finger. It wasn't the ring I had given her. This one was larger, brighter, more expensive. My stomach turned. Had she replaced our marriage that easily? I swallowed hard. Nia. Her entire body stiffened. The smile disappeared instantly. The champagne flute slipped from her fingers and shattered beside her heels. The music continued for another few seconds before fading into awkward silence. Nearby guests looked from me, to her, to the man beside her. Nobody spoke. Slowly, painfully slowly, she turned around. Our eyes met. Every trace of color drained from her face. Her lips parted. "Kendrick." She knew my name. She hadn't forgotten me. The man beside her frowned. "You know him?" She couldn't answer. I held her gaze. For 4 years I had imagined this moment. I thought I would scream. I thought I would demand answers. Instead, my voice came out calm. "So, who did I bury?" A tear rolled down her cheek. She took one hesitant step toward me. "Kendrick, I can explain." I laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because my heart no longer knew how to survive this kind of pain. You can explain why I spent 4 birthdays talking to your gravestone? You can explain why I blame myself every single night? You can explain why I never took off my wedding ring until last year. Because I couldn't accept you were gone? She covered her mouth. Passengers had completely stopped pretending not to watch. Phones slowly came out. Someone whispered, "Do they know each other?" The man in the white suit finally stepped forward. He positioned himself slightly in front of Nia. not aggressively, protectively. "Sir," he said calmly, "I think we should discuss this somewhere private." I looked him directly in the eyes. "And you are?" He hesitated. "My name is Donovan Ellis." I nodded slowly. "So you're the man my wife chose after attending her own funeral." His expression changed immediately. He looked confused. "What?" I turned back toward Naya. "You never told him—" "Did you?" She closed her eyes. A single sentence escaped her trembling lips. "He thinks I'm a widow." Donovan's face went completely blank. He looked at Nia, then at me, then back at Nia. "What is he talking about?" Nia couldn't answer. Instead, she began to cry. The color drained from Donovan's face. He looked at Nia as though he had never seen her before. "What is he talking about?" His voice wasn't angry. It was confused, deeply confused. Nia lowered her head. The silence between them answered his question long before she spoke. "My name isn't Naomi." Donovan blinked. "What?" She swallowed hard. "My real name is Nia Carter." His eyes narrowed. "I told you my husband died." "I lied." The words landed like thunder. Donovan slowly stepped backward. "No. You said you buried him." "I know. You said you watched him take his last breath." Tears rolled down her face. "I know. Around us, the passengers were pretending not to listen, but every eye remained fixed on us. I didn't move. I wanted every answer she had stolen from me." Donovan looked at me. "You're telling me you're her husband?" I was. He stared at the wedding photograph still clutched in my hand. Then at Nia. Then back at me. "You really thought she was dead?" "I buried her." His shoulders dropped. For the first time, I saw genuine shock instead of suspicion. He slowly turned toward Nia. "Tell me he's lying." She couldn't. Instead, she whispered, "I'm sorry." Donovan closed his eyes. He covered his face with one hand. "My God, I was going to marry you." The engagement ring on Nia's finger suddenly seemed heavier than gold. It looked like guilt made visible. A cruise employee approached carefully. "Excuse me, is everything all right?" Donovan answered without looking up. "No, nothing is all right." He removed the engagement ring from Nia's finger. Slowly, carefully. Without anger, without shouting, he placed it in her trembling hand. "I can't wear a future that was built on someone else's past." Those words silenced the entire deck. Nia broke down completely. She wasn't crying because Donovan removed the ring. She was crying because for the first time in 4 years, every lie had collapsed. I looked at Donovan. "You really didn't know?" He shook his head immediately. "I met her 3 years ago. She introduced herself as Naomi Brooks. She told me she'd lost her husband in a terrible accident. I believed every word." Something inside me shifted. The hatred I had felt toward him disappeared. He wasn't the man who stole my wife. He had been deceived too. He looked at me with genuine regret. "I'm sorry." "You don't owe me an apology." "No, I think I do. If I'd known, I would have walked away the first day." "I believed him." Nia slowly wiped her tears. "I never meant for either of you to get hurt." I laughed bitterly. "You faked your death. You let me mourn you. You built another life. And somehow, you still think this wasn't intentional?" She couldn't answer. Because there wasn't an answer. Only consequences. After several long seconds, Donovan spoke again. "We should leave." Nia nodded weakly. Then she looked at me. "Kendrick, please." "Give me one chance to explain." I stared at the woman I had loved for 10 years. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Now she looked like someone carrying 4 years of regret on her shoulders. "When?" I asked quietly. "When did you stop loving me?" Her head snapped upward. "I never stopped." Don't insult me with that. It's the truth. People who love someone don't fake their death. They don't attend their own funeral in secret. They don't watch the person they love cry over an empty grave." Every sentence made her flinch. But I wasn't finished. They don't replace a wedding ring. They don't let another man plan a wedding. They don't disappear for 4 years. The tears wouldn't stop falling down her face. "I know what I did." "No. You know what you did. You have no idea what you did to me." For the first time since I saw her, my voice cracked. I died too. The words hung in the air. No one spoke, not even the passengers. Donovan looked away. Nia covered her mouth, sobbing. I spent 4 years wondering if I could have saved you. I blamed myself. I replayed our last conversation every night. I asked God why he took you. And all that time, you were watching sunsets on cruise ships. She shook her head desperately. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was. She looked toward the ocean. For several seconds, only the waves answered. Finally, she whispered. It started 6 months before the accident. My heartbeat slowed. What started? She closed her eyes. The lies. Donovan frowned. What lies? Nia looked at both of us. There are things neither of you knows. She reached into her designer handbag. Slowly, she removed an old leather journal. Its edges were worn. Its pages were filled with handwritten notes. She held it toward me. I wrote everything. Every lie. Every mistake. Every reason. You deserve to know the truth. I took the journal. On the very first page, written in her handwriting, were 7 words that made my blood run cold. I fell in love with Donovan before I disappeared. My hands tightened around the leather journal. The words on the first page blurred before my eyes. I fell in love with Donovan before I disappeared. For several seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. Even the ocean seemed quieter. I looked up, straight into Nia's eyes. Tell me this isn't true. She couldn't. Instead, she nodded, a slow, painful, heartbreaking nod. Every hope I didn't know I was still holding disappeared in that single moment. Donovan looked at her in complete disbelief. What did you just say? She turned toward him. I never told you how we met. His voice became almost a whisper. You said we met at a charity gala. I lied. You said you'd been widowed for over a year. I lied. You said your marriage had been happy. I lied. His face hardened. So, when did we actually meet? Nia closed the journal. At the investment conference in Savannah. I remembered it instantly. 3 months before the accident, I had been invited to speak at that conference but canceled at the last minute because of an important client meeting. Nia had gone alone. She had insisted on representing our small consulting business. I remembered kissing her goodbye that morning. Go make us proud. She had smiled. I will. I never imagined that would be the day everything changed. She looked at me. I met Donovan there. We only spoke for a few minutes. But afterward, we kept talking. Donovan's expression slowly shifted from confusion to realization. You told me you weren't married. I know. You showed me photos without a wedding ring. I know. You said you had no children. I know. You built our entire relationship on lies. Tears streamed down her face. I did. He stepped backward. For the second time that evening, he looked like a man whose entire world had collapsed. I loved someone who never existed. His words pierced the silence. Nia lowered her head. I became someone I didn't even recognize. I finally found my voice. So the accident, she nodded. It happened. You survived. Another nod. And instead of coming home, I saw it as my chance. The honesty hurt more than another lie ever could. My chance to start over. Without me, she whispered. Without the guilt of asking for a divorce. The words landed like a punch to my chest. She hadn't faked her death because she had no choice. She had chosen the easier path. She had chosen escape over honesty. She had chosen silence over truth. And she had chosen another man before she ever lost me. I slowly sat down. Not because I was weak, because my legs could no longer carry the weight of the truth. You let me bury an empty coffin, because telling me you loved someone else was harder. She nodded through tears. I'm ashamed of that every single day. Donovan looked at both of us. I need to know one thing. She met his eyes. When we got engaged, did you love me? She answered without hesitation. Yes. He frowned. And Kendrick? Silence. Then she whispered the most honest sentence she'd spoken all evening. I loved both of you. Neither answer was enough, because love without honesty becomes something else entirely. Donovan removed the watch from his wrist. It was the gift Nia had given him on his birthday. He placed it on the table beside the engagement ring. I can't compete with a ghost. He looked at me. And I won't build a future on another man's heartbreak. Without another word, he walked toward the suite door. Nia reached for him. Donovan? He stopped. But he never turned around. I don't hate you. His voice was steady. I pity the fact that you spent 4 years running from one mistake until it destroyed 3 lives, instead of 1. Then he left. The door closed softly behind him. Nia collapsed into the nearest chair. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, I opened the journal again. Page after page revealed every lie. The secret phone calls, the hidden meetings, the growing emotional affair, her fear of confronting me. The moment she learned about the accident and realized everyone believed she had died. And the sentence that broke me most wasn't about Donovan. It wasn't about the affair. It was written on the final page. The hardest part wasn't pretending to be dead. The hardest part was realizing Kendrick deserved the truth and knowing I was too selfish to give it to him. I closed the journal. The tears I'd been holding back finally came, not because I wanted her back, but because I had finally buried the last illusion of the marriage I thought I'd had. Nia looked at me with trembling eyes. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I stood. No, you don't. She closed her eyes. But tomorrow, I'll tell the authorities everything. I'll tell Donovan everything. I'll tell the world everything. I nodded once. That's the first honest decision you've made in 4 years. The next morning, the cruise captain announced that the ship would arrive early in Miami. Local authorities were waiting at the terminal. And this time, Nia wasn't planning to run. When the Eternal Horizon docked in Miami the following morning, the first rays of sunlight reflected across the harbor. Passengers lined the rails, unaware that for me, this wasn't the end of a vacation. It was the end of a marriage that had died long before the funeral. Nia stood beside me in silence. She wasn't wearing the elegant red dress anymore. She had changed into simple clothes. For the first time in years, she looked like the woman I had married, not because of what she wore, but because she had finally stopped pretending to be someone else. Donovan waited a few steps behind us. Neither of us spoke to him. There was nothing left to say. As soon as we stepped onto the terminal, Nia walked directly toward the waiting authorities. My name is Nia Carter, she said. I falsely allowed myself to be declared dead 4 years ago. I've come to correct the record. No excuses, no tears, no attempt to escape, only truth. Over the following weeks, every legal record was corrected. Her death certificate was canceled. Her identity was restored. The investigation confirmed there had been no insurance fraud and no criminal conspiracy. But there were consequences. She faced civil penalties for knowingly allowing the false declaration to remain uncorrected. Her reputation collapsed overnight. News outlets called her the woman who attended her own funeral without returning home. Friends disappeared. Business opportunities vanished. People who once admired her no longer trusted her. She accepted every consequence without complaint, because she finally understood that some mistakes could never be erased. Donovan ended their relationship permanently. I love the woman I believed you were, he told her one last time. I can't build a future with someone who destroyed the truth to avoid an honest conversation. He walked away without looking back. Months later, Nia asked if we could meet one final time, not to reconcile, not to ask for another chance, only to give me something. We met in the same Atlanta park where I had proposed 10 years earlier. She handed me a small wooden box. Inside were my wedding ring, every letter she had written but never sent, and one final envelope. I wrote this yesterday, she said. Please read it after I leave. She smiled sadly. Thank you for loving me more honestly than I ever loved myself. Then she turned and walked away. I never stopped her. After she disappeared from sight, I opened the envelope. Kendrick, if I had told you the truth 4 years ago, you probably would have hated me. Instead, I chose a lie that made you suffer even more. I convinced myself I was protecting us. In reality, I was protecting myself from facing the consequences of my own choices. You deserved honesty. You deserved respect. You deserved a goodbye. I gave you none of those things. I'm sorry. I folded the letter carefully and placed it inside the wooden box. That was the last time I ever saw Nia Carter. 2 years later, My company had grown beyond anything I had imagined, but success no longer defined me. Peace did. One afternoon, during an interview, the host asked, "After everything you've been through, what have you learned?" I smiled. The greatest betrayal wasn't that my wife faked her death. It was believing that avoiding the truth hurts less than telling it. I paused before adding, "The truth may break a heart once, but a lie can break it every single day." Somewhere else in the city, Nia watched that interview alone. She quietly turned off the television, not because she was angry, because she finally understood what she had lost. And for the first time in 4 years, so did I. Not the woman I married, but the man I became after surviving the lie.